Kyle Davidson being very, very political. Here's the takeaway. If something comes along that makes sense, we will definitely act upon it.
That's as vague as you can put it.
Well, but he's saying we don't know what's going to be available.
Right.
Maybe Martin resigns, maybe Branton resigns.
Right.
But if something becomes available, meaning Vancouver calls and wants to trade Elias Pettersson or Brock Besser, and you go, okay, that makes sense for us. We're definitely going to act on it. Right. He can't go out and say, we're going to go be aggressive and we're going to make big offers to every free agent out there because, as he said, if there's no interest from the other party, all he's going to do is put himself in a really bad spot if he says something like that.
Yeah.
And I think he learned that lesson
probably
coming into this year saying, we expect more. This can't happen again. It's unacceptable. Then it happened again. And now people will not and should not, for the record, forget that he said that.
Right.
That's an important mark against him on his GM score sheet.
Yeah. And I think too, like with today's kind of theme being like still in a rebuild's going well. It's looking to, trades and free agency. A lot of those entail trading picks or prospects or things of that nature. And I think he's still pretty steadfast in the rebuild plan that he came in with, but he's open to flexibility. He's open to being fluid with whatever situation, presents itself. And it's not to say that it's, as he says, like it's not to say like, oh, well, we're in a rebuilding process. So for the next 7 years, all we're doing is hoarding draft picks and using every single draft pick, and it's only going to be draft picks. Like there's different levels to the rebuilding process. And right now you're at a point where, yeah, you can start looking at those draft assets and those prospects that you have. Some of them you start to look at as, well, this is surplus. What can we do with this surplus? And I think you had to build that up first. And now you kind of go into the part of like, okay, can you take big swings on trades or offer sheets or free agency or things like that? Like, do you have what it takes to take those big swings? And I think, with what the free agent market could look like, there could be some big swings that the Blackhawks could make because they have a lot of space to do it. They have roster spots available for top tier guys like that. But again, as he lays out, like everyone is going to try to be in on those top guys. Everyone who has the cap space to make it work or is willing to create cap space to make it work, they're going to be in on it. And there's a lot of great things about what the Blackhawks are doing, but for some of those guys, they don't care about, in a few years, like this team's going to be really competitive and really young and really exciting. Some guys are going in thinking, I got 3 years ahead of me to figure it out, to either cash in the most I can or to win a cup. I only got 2 good years left on these knees or something like that. So I'm trying to go for a big money deal that's going to give me security, but they don't have the time to kind of like be sold on like, oh, the future. Like a lot of those guys probably are thinking, I need to contend now. So as Kyle Davidson can lay it out of like, we can offer these guys opportunities, but it's a two-way road. Like they have to also have interest in what the Blackhawks offer.
I asked my question there too, is like, how do you sell the city to people? And I think beyond what's happening at the NHL level, you have opportunities for your family. You've got good schools, great neighborhoods to grow up in. If you have kids that want to play hockey, you've got the Mission. You've got all these great hockey programs out here. So there's a ton of resources for rich kids to grow their athletic
Zach
game.
Hymans.
Those Zach Hymans of the world, that one rich hockey player. Yeah. So that's the thing that players consider too. And I know it's hard for us to quantify that because we don't know the personal lives of everybody. But if someone's saying, look, I got to spend the next 8 years of my career here, do I want to spend that in a city like Chicago, or do I want to spend it in a city like Calgary or Winnipeg or Florida or Los Angeles or whatever it might be? There's tons of considerations to be made in that regard. And I do think the Hawks, like historically, when they're since Rocky's taken over, they're willing to pay people. Like it's not, they're overpaying Foligno, they're overpaying Dickinson. You could probably argue they're overpaying Bertuzzi a little bit. Like it's not unwillingness to spend. It's like David's saying is we're going to do our best to convince the guys we want to come play here. And if we have to make a trade, we've got the assets to do it. That's what you want to hear. And again, in that whole 6-minute chunk, what matters is if something makes sense, we will definitely pursue it.
Right.
Okay. And I think Mikko Rantanen, Mitch Marner, Brock Besser, Elias Pettersson, a lot of those make sense and could present themselves as opportunities for Kyle Davidson.
They make sense so long as that they actually hit free agency. And if what the Blackhawks offer is a better career and life situation than what other teams are going to offer those guys. That's what it comes down to. And we talk about, coming up to the trade deadline and free agency, like only one team gets to acquire these players or sign these guys, and 31 others, in theory, miss out on it. So then you got to go down your pecking order of things. And Blackhawks might be in that situation. They might go after Rantanen. They might go after Mitch Marner. They might go after the top free agents, and it just doesn't pan out. Yeah. And then they have to go to their backup plans and plan C's and things like that for free agency. So again, like I'm glad that he's at least expressing like, yes, we are open to things that make sense. We're not rigid in our rebuilding plan, nor should you be. But also, like, you have to kind of let those markets play out as things, as we get to March 7th, as we get to July 1st, like different things are gonna play out, and we might get to July 1st and Rantanen's not a free agent. He might sign an extension with Carolina. Who knows?
Yeah, he might.
Mitch Marner might figure it out. Like there could be situations that just we keep talking about, and then don't present themselves.
But this is also what Davidson's talking about. So if Carolina if they decide to sign Mikko Rantanen, there's going to suddenly be players available that weren't available from Carolina before, right? Or whoever it might be, right? Yeah. If some team finds $15 million for Mikko Rantanen, again, it could be any of the 31 other teams. That's going to make somebody available from a contender.
Yeah,
because there's very few contenders that have like, we've got $15 million of cap space for you, Mikko Rantanen. So it's not truly 31 teams.
Right.
That the Hawks are up against for these guys. Yes, there are 31 other teams in the league, but how many have the cap space? How many have, if they wanted to make a trade with Carolina, if Carolina says, you know what, it's June 29th and we are not confident we're going to sign Mikko Rantanen, the Hawks can say, hey, remember we took on that extra so you can make this deal happen? How about you give us that consideration? We'll throw you a 3rd-round pick for the rights to Mikko Rantanen.
Give you your 3rd-round pick back.
Right. Like, but sure, like, and Carolina says, okay, like, we're not going to sign him anyway. We might as well get, this is exactly what the Hawks did when they acquired pending unrestricted free agents, Foligno and Hall, right? Weren't they both going to be free agents? Or no, Hall wasn't, but Foligno was. Yeah. So they had to trade for Foligno and then sign him.
They did it with Perry. They did it with Perry for Corey Perry and then signed him.
We all silly like the mayor.